Okay, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the September 21st, 2022 Eastern Essex District Department of Veterans Services meeting. My name is Bob Snow. I'm the chairman of the board, and I'm going to go around to the right. We can introduce ourselves. Linda?
Okay, I am Linda Allison. I am representing Ipswich. I'm a select board member of the town of Ipswich.
I'm Cindy Quinn. I'm going to be the recording secretary this evening. I'm also from Ipswich, and my son called me today. He just returned from duty at Joint Base Cape Cod. He's with the National Guard, and he's been down there the last 6 days.
I'm Karen Bell, I'm assistant to the VSO director, and I live in Essex.
I'm Dan Packer. I'm a Newbury Town Selectman, retired Lieutenant Colonel out of the Air Force. My son just got married on Friday, and he just joined the Navy. And he's going to be, he got badged down at Lackland Air Force Base, and he's going to be a K-9 cop.
Congratulations.
Doug Ross from Georgetown, Board of Selectmen.
Hi, Ron Ross from West Newbury, and just came into this position a few weeks ago. 30 years retired, ended up back in Massachusetts because this is where I started. Came in from the military. Got 3 kids. Two of my boys are serving in 3rd group at Fort Bragg. One deployed, comes back in a few weeks, and the other one just finished his Russian school, so hopefully he'll be back too. Again, did this here to give back to the community, and I look forward to working with everybody in here. Thank you.
Rich Barbato.
Rich?
I am Mike Flynn from the town of Essex, Massachusetts.
Hi, I'm Karen Summit, I'm the treasurer, and I'm the treasurer collector for the town of Rowley.
I'm Karen Tyler. I am the district director, veteran service officer for the Eastern Essex District Department of Veteran Services.
Okay. Board, everybody, new people, it's good to have you with us, and thank you for volunteering for this position. This is really important to our communities. It's really important to our veterans, and we're all looking forward to your input at the table. So don't hesitate. Okay. So first, on any citizen inquiries, we don't have any other citizens there. Rich, you have an inquiry?
I have one because we don't have new and old business on our agenda, so I'm going to bring this up under citizens' queries. I learned today that our federal government does not allow veterans preference if you retire from the service at the rank of major or above, unless you're disabled. And I think that's a travesty, because there are many people that are retiring out young enough to have a second career and want to look for federal jobs, and they're precluded from using that veterans status. So I guess my question is, could we maybe put an inquiry into Seth Moulton or his counterparts at the federal government and find out more about that? I was surprised. I really was. I don't know if that's the case in Massachusetts or not, because each state, from what I understand, treats their veteran status requirements differently. So I'd like to find out more about that.
Okay. Do you know, is that at the federal level job, or is it at any government job, or do you know what?
I don't know. I found out about it today. Well, I'll be honest, my son is a major in the Air Force, and he's looking to retire next year. And they offer various internship programs with different organizations and all that. And he's looking for a second career at some point in the not too distant future. But some of the federal agencies he would like to apply to, they don't offer veterans preference because of that. And I looked it up myself under the federal website, and I was just surprised,
So he should, if he's transitioned, going through the transition assistance program, used to be ACAP, back. So like,
that TAP program should give him a good once over the world on all that stuff. There are federal
Right.
hiring authorities, but to your point, it does vary state by state. But I will say that Massachusetts has the best veterans benefits in
Right.
the whole country.
Yeah, but if anybody that's in that situation is looking for a federal job, you know, with, I don't know, FEMA or the FBI or, you know, any of these places.
Yeah.
You can't take advantage of that veteran status
Hmm.
for preference purposes.
Yeah, on OPM's website, there's the Office of Personnel Management. There's a whole rundown on it. I haven't looked at it for a while, but we can direct hire, you know, a lot of it.
Yeah,
'cause
yeah,
I
it's not the question of whether someone can apply or get hired, it's having
The
that
preference.
veteran's preference that
Yeah.
they're not entitled to if they're a major or above,
Yeah,
which.
Is this something new? Is this?
I don't know. I found out about the percent today, and my feeling was, I don't care if you're a major or 4-star general, you should have that preference.
yeah. Well,
I got more about that if we.
Karen, can you find out more about that?
Right down.
Thank you. Thanks.
Super.
Yep.
Anything else?
It's in
Okay. All right, has everybody read the minutes?
I would just like to say that both of these minutes say that I was at this meeting and I was not.
Okay, let's have a correction in the minutes.
I have a question on the executive session minutes to vote on. Did we vote on Karen's contract? Because if we did, that vote should have been held in open session. We can negotiate in executive session.
We voted in the first.
Was it?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, because we waited.
That's in the open session. That's in the open
It
session.
should be in the minutes. Is it there?
No, it's not.
Yeah, on
It's in
the
the
contract
executive.
presentation,
Mhm.
Mr. Snow presented Ms. Tyler with a 3-year contract.
Yeah, but we didn't vote on it. That's my question.
Oh.
We did.
We
did-
voted under, it's under the executive session, and that really needs to be.
Okay, it's a, we did vote in open session. I asked.
Okay.
Okay, so let's get that transferred over to the open session. You weren't here. Okay, so those corrections have to be made. Okay,
Well, it does say the board, I wasn't even on the board at that time, but it does say the board returned to open session at 7:31 PM, right on that, right above where.
Yeah, but it doesn't say, it doesn't say that we took the vote.
Yeah, that's.
So
The vote is indicated under the executive.
Okay, I got you.
I just happened to remember that particular moment because I remember that we had to come back and we had to vote in the open session.
So it was just forgotten on the minutes, is all.
Yeah.
It was put in the wrong place. All right. So.
Yeah, so it needs to get moved out of the executive session and into.
Any other corrections on the minutes? Okay, if not, can I have a motion to accept the minutes with those corrections?
So moved.
I have a second. I have a second. All those in favor? Aye.
I have to abstain.
Yeah.
Two abstentions, right? Right. Okay.
Who's abstaining?
Dana Packer.
Oh, yeah. Okay, thank you.
All right, moving on to item number 3, Rich Park Tornadoes. He has spoken to us many times before. He's very interesting calls. And he's going to give us an update on the global war on Memorial Bridge. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Rick because you're great.
So, thanks for the time. The bridge, just to kind of, give you one sort of rule about what happened. I think it was a couple of years ago, Karen and I, pushed forward, a recommendation to introduce legislation to name the High Street Bridge in Ipswich as the Global War on Terror Memorial Bridge. We did this because in Essex County, we're kind of devoid of anything that would indicate we're at war for over 20 years. And then we've lost over 300 folks in the Commonwealth, 30 plus from Essex County. We saw a rise in veteran suicide within the surrounding your communities. And fortunately for me, I was on a district list at one time where I was getting upwards of 40 emails every time a veteran died by suicide in our nation. So this is it's a public health problem. It's claimed the lives of 31 folks that I fought and interact with since we came home. It's the whole reason I work for the VA. And so I wanted to do something that would be a physical representation of the communities around here, acknowledging, not thinking, just acknowledging that people voluntarily put the uniform on and stood in defense of our nation. More importantly, something to be a memorial to folks that we lost. And so after a lot of ups and downs and a lot of folks coming out and a lot of folks that were against the effort and a lot of really thoughtless, hurtful language that folks used, we were finally able to get it signed by the governor in July. We then engaged with Mass DOT about getting the sign fabricated. We're also going to have a bronze statue that's going to be situated adjacent to the bridge. And we're going to have a bronze plaque that will be affixed to the bridge. And there's a mechanism to do all that DOT has. They also were kind of like, we're trying to rip down the orange line right now and work on the whatever tunnel. So like basically just tell us what you want and we'll help you run this thing up the flagpole. We're going to have a dedication ceremony on Saturday, 15 August. There's a whole thing around that as well. A lot of pushback on that and a lot of obstacles, but we're doing it anyway. It'd be great if you could help us disseminate information around that. It's going to kick off at 10 upstairs in the old gym here. We're going to have a lot of Gold Star families from the Commonwealth that are going to be in attendance. The Adjutant General is going to be here, Gary Keefe. General Keefe, we're going to have Colonel retired Cheryl Poppy, who's Secretary of Veteran Services for the Commonwealth. She's going to be here. The governor is kind of up in the air right now. We're going to have a keynote from my boss in Washington is coming up, but he's coming down because he's touring vet centers, starting in Caribou, Maine, and then driving all the way down. I was like, really want to drive down from Caribou? Because that's a hell of a drive. Like, that's what he wants to do, so he's going to do it. And then my buddy Ryan Pitts, that was a Medal of Honor recipient from Afghanistan, is going to provide some remarks. We'll have a short ceremony with the Gold Star families. We'll do an ceremonial unveiling of the bridge sign, and then we'll conclude.
Which one is this again? The date?
15 October. It's a Saturday. And so, yeah, I mean, it's I don't know. It was a difficult process. It was, like I said, there was some damaging language that folks use. We tried to do some public education thing. We brought Ryan out here to speak at the high school, and this word didn't get out, or there are people that were ripping our flyers down around town and everything. So it's the climate's changed a lot. When I returned home to this community and the surrounding communities with the Vietnam veterans that squared me away. You're talking about Charlie Sapitsky. I remember Edwin Sapitsky that was at the Chosen Reservoir and on Tarawa. That guy was a hell of a guy.
Jackson Sapitsky.
Jackson, is that who that was?
It is Tarawa.
That's right. That's right.
Correct.
Yeah. And even like, Mrs. Quinn, running into your son. I ran into your son at Fort Dix when I was coming back from Hawaii, and he was heading out somewhere. I can't remember, but yeah. So seeing the climate change in the community and trying to do our best, because folks, we haven't seen the end of veterans returning home. Where I work in the planning and policy office, we do a lot of forecasting and analysis, and we work with our statistical folks in kind of looking at heat maps and where veteran populations are growing. Essex County veteran population is growing. It's anticipated. We have forecasting out to 2026 right now. And so we're using that to shape about where we deploy our resources and our personnel. We're just finishing it up. District 1 which is this area. We just finished briefing that a week ago. I'm going down to Washington tomorrow morning for a quick turn and burn, but that's going to be the central part of it is what we've come up with so far. So we're not seeing the end of it, but the messaging, I think, is the concern, especially with the youth, about service. I'm certainly not trying to recruit anybody into the military, but it doesn't mean we need to denigrate folks that, aspire to do just that. In case in point, I mean, when we were in high school, kids were stopping us in the hallway and they're like, what the hell are you doing? And we said, well, we're setting up for this speaking event tomorrow. And they said, oh, we didn't know anything about it. That kind of drove home at least part of it. But it was disappointing. And it's the first time a medal bar recipient had come to Ipswich since the Civil War. And we had 12 people in an auditorium that can hold 800. So it was the message came through loud and clear, and I think we canceled the next one that we did.
How many veterans are in Essex County? We as a committee have sort of, tried to struggle with that number.
I've got,
Just out of curiosity.
I can pull it up for you real quick if you got half a second. I don't want to suck any more oxygen.
And then my other question, first of all, thank you for your efforts. What were some of these harsh or negative comments via social media, or were they?
Some of it was on
face-to-face?
social media, some of it was face to face,
Yeah. It's
the
unfortunate.
yeah, I mean, so-called war on terror was one of them.
Yeah.
We're going to dedicate a bridge to the so-called war on terror. Boy, I'll tell you. I mean, we did a good job of keeping it from these shores. 9/11 happened, and then those of us that stepped forward and did what was required, kept it from here. So. Yeah, just kind of hard to hear that stuff. And it doesn't take much for that stuff to, the root system to grow and flourish. So, the more that we can do in this regard, but I will tell you, it sucked the wind out of my sails a little bit, I got to tell you. Yeah, I can pull it together.
That's okay. I'm just curious. You don't have to, I don't want to put you on the spot.
Yeah, I think I got it right here. I apologize, folks. Okay, here it is. So it's a government phone. It's a government phone.
Expensive and slower.
It doesn't. So I'll wait for that to load, but that's basically it. As much as you can help us spread the word, we've got flyers and stuff we can email and pass along. I've got physical ones I can bring out to you, but trying to get as much folks out here. There were folks that said they were going to protest the dedication. So I've got as many war on terror veterans that I can muster that are going to be coming out and will be on station. But again, kind of hard. So. In total, across Essex County, you have, and this is old data, about 30,000 veterans, 27,000 male, 2,200 female. The highest concentration in your area is Peabody, and forecasting to continue to grow. West Newbury is 224. I don't know who else is in here. I've got Manchester by the Sea, Wenham, Lynn, Danvers. I did a lot of the high concentration.
That's a surprisingly large number. Thank you for that one.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
It's just interesting to hear the big picture funneling down to our efforts. So,
Rich, I want to thank you for your efforts.
yeah, thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you
sir.
so much.
Yeah. I mean, and I know a lot of these. So the other piece of this is I know a lot of these Gold Star families have been down in Arlington with them. We normally go down for the Reach Across America thing. I know them because we provide clinical services to a certain number of them. So it's hard. And then for those of us that lost friends, it's having a physical, something physical where folks can go. I'll put the social worker hat on, where folks can go and grieve and process and have something that, if a veteran of the war on terror served in any capacity drives past that for their family, that have waited at home like my parents did with no word when we were participating in the invasion. It's a terrible thing. You don't know what's happening to your kid. You don't know where they are. You don't know what they're doing. It's pretty awful. So I think if we can collectively come together to send a loud and clear message to folks that it's not a terrible thing to serve your country. It's not a terrible thing to honor the sacrifice of those who stood in defense of our country. It's not a terrible thing that to embrace that and not shy away from it. You know, it's been a long war for our nation. And so I think the timing was right for it. And that's about it. I love this community. I love it. I really do. You know, I love Ipswich. It has a great history. We've got great people here. And so I'm not dwelling on the ones and twos, but it was still kind of damaging. I don't think that's indicative of the larger position of folks from this, not just Ipswich, but from the vicinity.
Rich, I think, the Vietnam veterans went through similar,
Oh.
worse.
Oh, probably worse. Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
the era was just a terrible time to be in the service, Doug. And, or were you in at that particular time, Vietnam, or just?
No, I came in 86.
86.
Well, the same type of things happened when what's her name, Diane Carlson Evans, took a 10-year journey to get the Women's Memorial.
Yeah.
Right.
Park.
Yeah, I met her. She's fantastic. She was on our advisory committee at one time. Yeah, sure. I mean, here's the difference though, is that my uncle went missing in action in Vietnam. They gave my aunt like 2 weeks, the casualty assistance officer, to clear post in Norfolk and take her 7 kids, my 7 cousins, packed up in a car, drove back to Everett, completely catatonic, didn't know what to do. And the difference is that street, whatever the hell it is, Crescent or Gilmore Street, Everett, those people took care of my cousins. They brought food, every day. So that community, and not saying that's reflective of the greater experience of the Vietnam veteran, our system within VA exists because of the Vietnam veteran. Matter of fact, the guys I'm going to be working with tomorrow in the office has been in our system for 42 years, was an Arvin Ranger advisor in Vietnam. So the point is that we've forgotten some stuff. There's societal stuff that we're not going to fix, but there's community stuff that we can kind of resuscitate that we need to have in place. Like I said, the Vietnam veterans from this community, Jim Dort, Pete Wilson, Buddy Bernard, Dan Gallant, I mean, all of them.
Every war has its uniqueness to it. And I think like World War II vets, there was 11 million came home. And nobody will, and for the reason they didn't want to talk about it because some people just wanted to go back to work.
Sure.
And it was a different mentality completely. Just let me go back to work, go back to my job. I don't want to forget what's going on. And I always tell the story, guys, that one of my jobs, my last job when I was in the Marine Corps, I had to visit VA hospitals. And I had to go to bed. And when I went up to bed, I took an office to me, and as I went in, there were 12 Marines sitting down. All of that, we were in an AA ward. And as I went down, each one of them, we shook our hands, and they were happy to see us. And as I shook hands, Tinian, 1944, Saipan, 1944. And they went down to every arm. Got to one guy, I shook his hand, and he put a coin in my hand. He goes, "Look, Marine, look, son." 30 days from them.
Oh, yeah.
And that was the way that they treated themselves. Post-traumatic stress wasn't even on the, it was shell shock. It was something else. That veteran really, World War II veteran fell through the cracks. And I think every war, even going back to the Civil War, those veterans, when they came home, they fell through the cracks too.
Yeah. I was telling Karen about that because all of the Civil War prints from the town hall that have been there since I was about that high going to town hall, my old man just kind of disappeared overnight. When I was down in Fredericksburg, Virginia, visiting my old battalion commander, he said, "Hey, Barman, look, this is an Ipswich Civil War unit marker here." And it says, "Near this spot, within an hour, 300 Union soldiers died. And then they pull the prints off the walls upstairs. And it's not just about memorializing the Civil War. I think it had to do with them kind of saying, make sure this doesn't happen again, where, you know, the country gets so divisive that we're turning on each other and, you know, like a more appropriate time. I
The
would
person
say.
I got thanked was I was in Ipswich, and Shaw's Mart, some young fellow came up to me and said, thank you. It's 2003, I remember. I went, thank you for what? I didn't even know it was talking.
Mhm.
I had my ball cap on.
Yeah,
Yeah, so
Yeah.
it took me back, but it was 9/11 that brought this to focus.
Mhm.
Now we worked 20 years and you gotta keep it alive.
yes, sir.
All right,
Yes, sir.
so. Rich, anything else you got?
That's it, just if you can help us spread the word and kind of, that's basically the ones over.
Okay. You're welcome to stay at the Rich.
10 in the morning. I'll bring those flyers down, I'll leave them.
I have some here that
I don't know.
We have a communication plan, we've got all the points of contact. We didn't want to run up the flagpole too early for a couple of reasons. One, it had to do with the protest, so we kind of wanted to just leave it until not the 11th hour, but pretty damn close, so, you know.
And I know it's on social media too, I've seen it.
Yes, yeah, make it around, so, yeah. But anyway, yeah, we'd love to have everybody there, if you all can make it, we'd appreciate the support, I know the Gold Star family is what supporting it with. So,
Rich, thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, folks.
Thanks.
Oh, my pleasure.
Rich, I know you're always welcome to come back.
Thank you, sir. Yeah, I tend to talk too much, so sorry for sucking here out. That's what you want. Take care. Everyone, sir, take care.
Thank you. All right, moving on to financials. With that, we give it to one of the Karens. Oh, the Karen named treasurer.
All right, so I've got two sets of financials here. The first one is the year end of fiscal 22. We've got the budget versus actuals, the profit and loss, and the balance sheet. So it looks like we did a very good job of, staying within our budget. We finished the year with a $26,411.79 balance left from our budget. So that will, go into our retained earnings.
How much is in there now?
The balance sheet as of the end of the year.
83,550.
Plus the 25.
112,773, Karen?
Well, that also includes our restricted donations, which aren't part of that. So, basically, about 110,000.
Right.
So that's something that, we'll want to keep in mind when we work on our budget. In January, February.
So retained earnings is where,
It's the accumulated surplus.
like,
Yeah.
that we said that we keep 50,000.
Yeah.
So we actually have a surplus of 60,000.
Correct, yeah.
We need to decide what we're gonna do with that. I think I brought that up at a recent meeting.
Right, and we have used that surplus as part of the budget in the past, so it's certainly something that, we can do again.
Yeah, my concern is with that is that, well, is this the proper space? Should talk about that. My concern is that it was talked about, we'll just lower the assessments over time. But what happens is, when that's all gone, then the towns all of a sudden get a big jump in their assessment. And I thought that I think it's better to take that and by your percentage of assessment, give it back to the community, being that it's taxpayer dollar. So.
Fiscal year 22, did we have the same members?
Well, it was fiscal 22 with the last, that meeting.
Right, but we had the same members of the district.
We-
the towns?
Yes.
We were 7 towns then.
In 22? No, I think.
No,
was it?
because we had lost.
Hamilton.
one.
Right.
I got to know the
We lost Sam.
Yeah, I mean, that's certainly something that the board could
Well,
discuss and vote today.
we should really consider that, but what's gonna happen, because we have $60,000+ that is sitting there above what we determined would be what we would keep for
Mhm.
the reserve.
Yeah, I mean, it'll go
And
back,
Cameron could look like a hero going to all the towns with a check, here you go,
right?
you know, at a selectmen's meeting or something.
Yeah, and like I said, that's certainly something that the board could vote to do.
Thank you.
You said you're a finance officer for,
I'm the treasurer collector for Raleigh.
for Raleigh.
Yeah.
I'm kind of new at this,
Yeah.
at this game, but from the selectman point of view, as far as finances go, the extra money, what you wouldn't want to do is put it into your operating budget for the next fiscal year. But what you certainly could do would be like, I don't know if we have one-time projects or anything like that. That would be the perfect place to spend that money outside of giving it back to the taxpayers. You know, what I wouldn't do is I would not use it to support the operating budget for the next year. That's just my 2 cents worth.
Right, where,
And I don't know if you do or you don't, or, you know.
We used it in the past for,
we have used it for the operating budget because what the policy is kind of like, we keep $50,000 in there as, you know, a safety net.
Bumper.
A buffer, and I mean, the only issue with using it for next year's assessment is, like Doug said, the year after that, your assessment, so say, you know, you had your assessment reduced by $10,000 because you used this cushion to cover it. Well, the next year, your assessment goes up by $10,000.
Right.
So from a budgeting perspective for the towns, I can certainly understand that.
I'm just thinking out loud, that's all.
that's why you're here at the table. Okay.
Okay, so, and,
Back to that point, if we were going to make several decisions, we do it tonight or at our next meeting.
Well, I wouldn't want to do it tonight,
Right.
only because we have 2 new members, which again, when they hash it over and think about it before we do something radical, okay? We use that word, but think about it and,
Maybe we could ask the question in the interim. What has been the greatest in the last 10 years, the greatest operating budget shortfall where we dipped into it, Karen? You know, and so say, you know, how thick does our bumper need to be? You know, because I think we are coming to turbulent times in the economy in the next couple of years. I'd be curious to say, well, how deep did we have to dip in the worst year? Maybe we can dig it in.
I don't believe that's happened since I've been here.
Okay,
And, you know, the records before I was here were kind of
all right.
slight.
If it's available, I'd be curious. If not, then.
Yeah,
we can make an
I
estimate.
don't believe,
7 years, there's been no dip into it.
There's no- Okay.
But maybe for our next meeting, what you 2 Karens can put together for, especially for the benefit of our new members, is what we did the last time. You know, we gave money back to the towns or how we dealt with it. And then we can maybe discuss it at that time.
Sure.
that might be something you would need to go back in the minutes. Do you have minutes that go back from before you?
And we
No,
were,
From before me,
Well, maybe we can make some inquiries.
yeah.
But I think
Before
we
me,
could
they
do-
didn't have accounting software.
Okay.
I
I think the sound
Yeah.
concept of it,
Yeah.
but what's the, I think the sound concept, what's the magnitude, let's dig into some of the numbers. If we have,
we were also, up until 2 years ago, correct me if I'm wrong, okay? We were at 8 towns and then 2 decided to leave. And so, and at that point, when we were 8, we had an additional person in the office here. So we had 3 people, so our operating expenses were a little bit more.
Mhm.
So,
Well, and I think also it would make sense, before you vote on it, to take a look at what those numbers would look like. You know, based on this year's assessments. Actually, we'd probably use 22's assessments since it's,
Well, that's where the surplus is.
yeah, but it's kind of cumulative.
Well, it is cumulative, but as of the end of fiscal 22.
Yeah.
That's what the number is.
Right, exactly.
so, Ron and Dana, I guess, when to take it and mull it over. If you have any questions, run by Karen. Okay. Or you can call me.
Are there any questions on the budget versus actual?
I was just curious, what changed on the balance sheet for September 21st as opposed to the one that was, what was it, September?
Oh, what I did is, if you look down in the equity section, Karen and I have been kind of going back and forth about the donations, because if you remember, the donations live through the next fiscal year, they don't get zeroed out.
Yeah.
So that's why we moved into the balance sheet. And I just thought it would be easier because most of the donations in the last year were for the bridge.
Oh,
So what I did is I separated donations that were restricted for the bridge. And then I put everything else in unrestricted donations. And I just thought it would be cleaner that way.
Okay.
So that's the only difference.
Yeah, because I didn't get a chance to really review this one as the new one, the revised one, as opposed to the other one.
Right, and that's basically, it just changed the pie a little bit. Are there any questions on the fiscal year end 22 financials?
Very thorough, thank you, Karen.
Oh, go ahead.
Well, I just want to explain to Ron and Dana. Karen was treasurer collector at the North Valley. Okay, and we were looking for somebody back about 5 years ago. Was it? Probably about 5, maybe 6 years ago. And the treasurer collector at that time left. And at that point, we were looking for someone, and Karen volunteered to step up and do it.
Well, I just have, because they were highlighted in this package,
Oh,
the overage, percent of budget for like the accounting software and network technology. Karen, was that the website?
Yeah, so those are the only two items that I went over. And the accounting software is actually, so I don't know if you guys remember or whatnot, but every year previous, I was always under, because I would call them, I'd say, hey, I see on your website, you have a rate of, $300. And they're like, that's for the new people. And I'm like, so I finally got caught and, they said, we can't do this another year. And the other thing too, is that their rates don't come out until like April. So I might always be a little bit off on that because, I can't, I bump it up a little bit, but if they bump it up even more, I had already done the budget. And the network technology, they went up on, so that's like email addresses and and so they went up a little bit on that. And I also had to get like new email set up and things like that.
Okay.
So.
Yeah, just
But-
curious.
Yeah. But I mean, if you look at the budget, I mean, pretty spot on.
Yeah, it is.
great. Okay, and now moving to the first couple of months of fiscal 23. Everyone has paid their assessments, so that's a very good thing. And, excuse me, we've been kind of progressing as we should for the first couple of months. The one big thing that gets paid right off the bat is the Essex Regional Retirement Assessment. Because you get a discount, you pay it right away.
How much was this one?
Because what happens is,
No, how much?
looks like about $632.
With the percentage of, is it on
It's about 1.75%. I mean, I'm sure Georgetown does it too. If you pay right away, you pay less.
here? Yeah, I'm curious.
Yeah. Not much. Something. Absolutely. And, budget versus actuals. Yeah, we're pretty much in very good shape on everything. Any other questions on anything?
I don't know. Can I ask a question?
Sure.
So I was wondering, if I could go, like, is this the appropriate time to do it? If I could go over postage, because I want to send out, a mailing to all the residents in Ipswich. I did a mailing to all the other towns, since Ipswich was the largest. I was able to do that, last fiscal year for the rest of the towns, so, if I do that, it's gonna use up everything. So I just wanted to make sure that it was okay that I go over. I don't know, what do I have here? I can let you know before I do it. Right now, how many people do we have in Ipswich? We have, 600, less than, about 685, I think.
Okay.
And then postage is
57 cents.
57 cents.
Nothing right on my head.
Do we do enough mailing to get a ball mail?
I don't think so.
I don't know.
We
I
just
don't
do-
know.
I don't know. Can
I don't know, I don't do that, yeah, I was gonna say, I know we do that for our, like our warrants and stuff like that.
Right.
But anyhow, moving
Well,
on.
listen, in theory, outreach is such a big part of this.
Yeah,
If we're, I'd like to see the number, but I, in principle, absolutely support the outreach, Karen.
right.
And if it's a few dollars over,
Yeah,
I think there's room in the budget.
yep. And we're mailing out some of our newsletters, which hadn't previously been mailed.
Well, I can let you know the mailing that we did. I now have. We've emailed our newsletter to people we haven't reached out to before. We got a lot of feedback of like, here's my name, here's my address, thanks for reaching out. A lot of them loved Karen's letter, and now that we've mailed these emails, emailed these newsletters, we're getting more calls. I think last week I actually had to bump people for appointments, or I sent them to, one I sent to Georgetown, one I sent to Raleigh, so it's definitely worth the amount of money for postage, or the amount of,
If it's roughly 685, I'm gonna send out to, and at 57 cents, be $430, 60%.
Yeah.
That's a stat.
yeah.
Good to know that when we suggested having a newsletter by email or mail, that it is a listening response.
Oh, yeah.
Some people.
And what is good, now I have a list of emails, so I'm gonna blast out the bridge
Yeah.
flyer, and is there anything else that's coming up?
Right.
We can just blast it out, and
Right.
so,
Well, I will say though, just in principle,
yeah.
that we are at sort of a divide. There's a generation that is still male focused.
Yeah.
Newspaper, where's my newspaper, right?
Yeah,
And then there's a whole technology driven,
Right.
hasn't picked up a newspaper in 20 years or.
and
Yeah.
those people, there are, and I have a list of people that I mailed the newsletter to also, so like when we sent out that mailing, it was, some people gave emails, some just gave, so I did it, when I sent it out, it was nice to have some,
And you guys have to bridge that gap. I'm
Yeah.
just commenting that it's.
oh, yeah, no, that was funny, because you could see they didn't put any emails, and then there's really funny emails.
Yeah.
You can tell when we were laughing, when they served.
Yeah.
We got people looking for Stars and Stripes, we got people looking for a few, looking for the Yank magazine.
But yeah, I'd like to continue, because I do outreach and stuff like that, but I was just really happy with the response that I got with the mailing, because,
Sure.
and I asked some people, I was, like I was talking to this one guy who's, from Ireland, he served in the Irish, military, and then came here and served in the US. And he told me, he's like, I don't usually respond to this stuff. And I go, well, what made you respond to this? And he just said, he's like, you sound very sincere, like, you know what I mean? That came across in the letter. And so sometimes when it's tough to get veterans like out of their houses to, at least, I know that I'm like hitting every veteran. And like sometimes you have to touch a person, 3 times or whatever the saying is, before you can get them to to engage, but, I know that a lot of people have tried mailings before, and I was just really happy that people started to, so
I
I'd like
can,
to. Oh, go ahead.
I can tell you that we're growing our post in the American Legion post in Georgetown. We probably have 7, maybe 8 new members, all younger than me, which is good.
Yeah,
And,
American Legion?
Hmm?
American Legion, or-
American Legion,
really?
Yeah.
That's great.
because, well, I won't tell you the reason why, because it's not.
Free drinks.
But no. I don't know, we have our meetings in the church. I don't think they like that, but anyhow, I'm encouraging them to just send you their email address.
yeah,
So they're on the books.
Sure.
exactly,
That's what we
Veterans
get.
tend to be very humble people,
yeah.
and a lot of them don't want recognition.
Yeah, well, and I think that, you know, we have a good BS detector. And so, you know, it just made me feel good that when he was like, no, this sounded sincere, that I wanted to give you a call. So anyways, I just like to keep it up.
And I was driving Karen crazy because I was a total like statistician nerd. We received this many and this is the percentage of Essex.
Yeah, so.
Anything anything else,
No,
Karen?
Any other questions? Okay.
Take a vote on the financials, accept the financials. in Canada. Do I have a motion to accept the funds? I have a motion, do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second. All those in favor?
I,
Aye. Okay.
are you looking for a motion for the postage? Yeah. postage. You need-
no, we're not at that point. We're not right. I got ahead of myself. Needed to come up at this point, but anyways.
Moving on to the chairman's report. Last Saturday, I went down to Quincy and visited the USS Salem. Oh, sure. And the ship is a heavy cruiser. It was built in 1947, commissioned 51, something like that. Only served for like 10 years. And it was, it's a very interesting ship to go through. It's in terrible disrepair. I was told by those volunteers, as we sat around, the hull is in very good shape. But it was good to go through and to see the technology, because it was just after World War II. And it had automatic guns, 8-inch guns, and went down into one of the boiler rooms, and I can't imagine being boiler room of the ship. It just, yeah, you know, you've been down there, so.
I was young midshipman, and the chief was taking me around, and he shook my hands, and he had 3 fingers missing. And he walked by a pinhole steam leak, and he said, I saw my fingers on the deck before I realized what was happening. So those places those steamships are tough places.
So if you got a chance to go down there, it's only open on Saturdays and Sundays, and it's only open in the summertime. They have 20 volunteers. It needs a tremendous, if you've gone down to USS Massachusetts, it's the same way. It needs a tremendous amount of work. They don't have the volunteers to do it. They picked up a couple, they might have picked up some Sea Scouts, not Sea Scouts. Maybe it was Sea Scouts. They were up and they were, it was an admiral ship. So it was in the Mediterranean. So it had it was all air conditioned, which was unbelievable, for a ship of that era. But it's quite a thing to go through. Again, if you go down there, you're going to see, the teak decks are all going up and everything else. So that was just wanted to mention that if people, if they want to see Korean War, Vietnam War ship, it's a good thing to go see. I got American Legion September. I don't know if you've read it. Yeah, it was quite disturbing. And it's Be the One. And I thought it was a good way to put it. It's talking about suicide. And that is something that we're seeing more of, and especially, and they really spell it out with the veteran today. The veteran today, we're talking about war on terror. People don't understand. These guys are going on deployments. In World War II, it was the duration. You were in until it was over. And there were mitigating circumstances in your family or something like that. You were the only son. But today, these guys, and they talked about the average American with post-traumatic stress is 6.8% of the population. Veterans diagnosed with post-traumatic stress, according to a 2017, is 12.9%. Vietnam veterans expected to have post-traumatic stress 30%, almost one in two. 30 and 100. That is just so disturbing. And I told you about when we're going through the mental facility at Bedford unless you go through something like that and see what we call that then shell shock, it's heart wrenching to see that all these guys fell through the cracks. And back then, how they treated themselves. So this is a very good article. And if anybody at home, if you a veteran, pick up that American Legion copy and read that, and be the one recognize, and it's all about recognition. The number you in the VA, you're in the VA, right?
100%, yeah.
Yeah. So, but I mean, every
What's
time
the
I go,
question?
I'm in the VA, so every time I go, the very first thing they ask me, do you feel safe? Do you have any anxiety? They go through it. I think most medical checkups today, you get that from doctors. And I think it's important that, especially for a veteran, because they don't know who they're dealing with, and they don't understand, what's happening inside the veteran. So again, read this article. I think it's very good, and be the one to prevent a suicide. It is epidemic with veterans. So.
Well, I'll tell you why. I'll tell you about the post. The reason that we're growing is that for years, I've gone to commanders meetings and I've told them all, we have to re-image ourselves. We have to rebrand ourselves because the younger veterans don't see anything in it for them. And the perception of a post, whether true or not, was a dark room with smoke filled and people drinking. And that was it. Many times in those situations, the younger veterans went to the Legion or VFW or AMVETS or whoever, and they didn't feel welcome there because of whatever reasons. They just weren't welcome. So they never joined the post. So we finally convinced a couple of young guys, this is what we want to do. We want to rebrand it, make it more family central. American Legion has various programs like a young tribute program, and they have a ham radio section. Those are things that families can do together with their kids, and then in conjunction with the Fish and Game and all that. And a couple of them bought it, one by one, we have new people coming in, and which is good because now we have the structure for new officers and to pass that torch to those younger generations. I just wish we had a building, but I'm trying to work on that percent of the time.
Well, it's another thing about the veteran. I was talking to a fellow on the family, and he was volunteering. And he was a Gulf War veteran, and he had a son. They were working, doing some work. And we were talking, and it came down to, I was on a submarine tender. This is what he told me. I was on a submarine tender. He said, I was in the back waters of the Gulf, but I was there, and I think that's what every veteran needs to understand. Everybody rolled the dice when they signed the papers, and you never knew where you're going to wind up when you joined. down when we were talking in World War II, down in the South Pacific, for every sailor that was in combat, there were 9. They were tending to ships to make sure those ships got ready so they could bring back, if they were damaged, they could bring them back. It was the whole, instead of going back to Pearl, they went to Oak Island utility, I think it was, and it was floating dry docks, everything to make sure the ships were refitted, and brought back into combat as soon as possible. But for like I said, for every sailor that was in combat, there were 9 guys that were trying to make sure that those ships. So, sometimes you hear, well, I didn't do much.
Yeah, people do, they say that,
Yeah,
but the fact is, you went where the government sent you.
that's right. They always tell the story. I was Karen, you were there. I was sitting next to a gentleman who was about 90-something years old, and he said, I didn't do much. I said, didn't do much. He said, no, I didn't do much. I was on an SBD. He says, you know what that is? And I looked down and I said, you are a dive bomber? Yeah, I sat on the back seat, but I didn't do much. This is on USS Saratoga. And he started telling me stories. He said, I didn't do much. I just sat in the back of the dive bomber. But he was very humble. I didn't do much. And he saw USS Enterprise get hit by a bomb. He told me that. But then again, it didn't do much. So
That is you hear that a lot.
Yeah.
From people.
but the thing is that you showed up. That's the thing.
That's right.
And that's what we have to get the vet to understand. You know, you showed up and you did a job.
Right.
It was important to get that, whatever you did, so that somebody else could be in the front lines.
Right.
Or vice versa.
That's why that women's memorial in DC
Yeah.
is so important,
Yeah.
because the nurses were, and the female that served, which was all volunteer, none of them were drafted. That they were like, I forget how many that were considered veterans at that time, but she went through a 10-year struggle.
Yeah.
With all manner of accusations and.
I used to go into Jamaica Plain, Bedford, and I went into West Roxbury. I went into West Roxbury, and I saw women's there, which is incredible. And those nurses, they were, I'm not saying about the VA nurses, but the nurses, we got these guys back to help and got them out. They were in Japan, when these guys were back, and then they got them, to Hawaii, and then they got back to the VA hospitals. Those women were angels, absolute angels, what we did.
Absolutely.
So I'm working with a woman that I'm trying, continually appeal her case. She was a field nurse in Vietnam. And so we have all these presumptives from Agent Orange and, different cancers and stuff like that. There is no presumptive cancer, uterine cancer, breast cancer, any of those cancers. And so I'm sorry, they don't have enough data on the number of females that were exposed to Agent Orange. So you can have prostate cancer because you have all this data of men that were in Vietnam and the increase in probability that they might get prostate cancer, but no female specific cancer is on that list of presumptives. And so I just have a hard time thinking that, well, if Agent Orange causes all these cancers, how can we be so sure that it wouldn't cause cervical cancer or, and so she got like hepatitis, and I mean, it just killed me because she keeps coming here and I keep filling out claims for her. She got hepatitis, and they're like, well, maybe you didn't get it, in Vietnam. And she's like, are you kidding me? She's like, I was covered all the time. And her husband, anyways, so I'll keep fighting the good fight for her, but it just.
And we're being broadcast, and any veteran out there, if you were in Vietnam and you were exposed to Agent Orange, you may have been exposed, I'm not sure, but go to the VA and find out, and go get your DD 214. can find out. The same way in the golf walk, as for the burn pits. And,
Burn pits are all OIF and OEF also, the burn pit
yeah,
roster.
I'm sorry.
That's the burn pit roster for OIF and OEF. Because predominantly in OIF, the burn pits were pretty bad. So that's the newest one that's out there for the burn pits
Okay.
to sign up for, to be on.
When you get the acronym, please.
Operation Iraqi Freedom or Operation.
Fine, thank you.
Sorry.
There were a lot of people that said, what was that?
Yeah,
Also, if you were Marine Corps and you were stationed in Camp Lejeune, everybody has seen the advertisements. That's the reason I'm in the program, because I was there. And all you had to be there was for 30 days. And if your family was stationed there with you, there's some terrible stories that I've heard about. Sergeant Major lost his daughter to was ovarian cancer. And some of the chemicals, the main chemical is benzene. And that's the one that they keep, matter of fact, I had my blood drawn just last week. I go through that all the time. So I think that's it for the chairman's report. With that, I'm going to turn it over to the director. The director's report.
All right, so we've been very busy, Karen and I. Like I said, the mailings was a success, was just had increase in activity in the office. I'm also seeing an increase in claims due to the PACT Act and what that entails. So a lot of people came out of the woodwork for that. Other people who I submitted claims for previous to the PACT Act, got in touch with again, and so we can resubmit those claims. And so I'm glad that the Congress finally passed it, because I was like, me, little P on me, can give you examples on, why you should pass this. And so also with the addition, there's 2 more presumptives for Agent Orange and also Camp Lejeune. Concern of mine is that there are a lot of lawyers, direct calling, mailing to veterans, to Marines who served in Camp Lejeune. And so that is something that they really need to be wary of. And also, while I'm on that kind of topic, I'm very happy to say that I've been working with a veteran. He not only was stationed at Camp Lejeune, he's also a Vietnam veteran. This guy is riddled with cancer, has Parkinson's, he was at 90%. And I was like, you should be at 100. He was getting paid, unemployability. I'm like, you need to be at 100. So I did up a claim, and, and we just kept like hammering it in. And so his 90%, he just called me, I saw him today, is now 200% plus social, plus special, what?
SSI.
Nope. And special monthly compensation. And now that he is at 100%, because he's like, so I get 200%, I don't know you get 100% and everything. And that also means, which makes him very happy, is that when he does pass, his wife will get DIC. So that's why it's so important to continue to,
so they found him total and permanent?
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah. Yep, so he's very happy. He got a retro payment of like $25,000. So yeah, another appeal that I worked on for 7 years with the guy, he just got approved. And it was 10%. He's like, but at least they're acknowledging, and so I'm like, we spent 7 years together. I'm like, you gotta pop in every once in a while and say hi. So that being said, so sometimes when you look at like the numbers and you're like, oh, how many claims have you done? And everything, well, there's the number of claims, but there's also the number of, contacts for each claim. It's not like, you have one claim, you meet once and it goes in and stuff. So sometimes these take months, sometimes they take years. And so, I think that, you know, the VSO position is really important because they have that have that same person. So I think that's going very well. Also, a couple of other things that, you know, is important about this position is that, we had a homeless vet. And so, you know, I worked with him and I got the VA involved, and it was also medical and stuff like that. And he wasn't able, you know, to go back to his home because it was, being condemned once they found out he couldn't live there anymore. And so he was in the hospital, but I was able to make phone calls. You know, somebody from the community called me and I said, all right, let me see, you know, what I can find out. So I'm on the phone with the social workers at the private hospital. I said, we have to get the VA in on this because he's at a private hospital. He doesn't have insurance. He goes to the VA. If we don't get the VA involved right now, then he could be on the hook for all this. And so, I just, you know, I was like the healthcare proxy or whatever, you know what I mean? Like I was the point of contact because, you know, he needed assistance and he couldn't advocate for himself. So it was really a combination of, you know, social workers and, you know, even hospital staff and his contact with me, you know, I was like, give them my number and everything. I was talking to him all the time, trying to walk him through it, encourage him, kind of steer him in which way to go. And so anyways, I was able to get the VA to pay for his stay at the rehab, the medical rehab, because you also have to do the assessment. Okay. The medical and the homelessness and everything. So I separated that to make sure that his medical was taken care of and then his home. And so he actually got an apartment in Beverly. So, and it's all veterans that live there. And so they'll help kind of navigate him and kind of advocate for him to make his appointments and to do that type of stuff. Also, the VA called, so it's kind of the opposite way, that they couldn't find a veteran. They were trying to do a home visit and so the VA knew, you know, there's a VSO, we call it VSO and stuff. And so I was able to locate him, you know, find out who his healthcare proxy is and all that. And, you know, was able to let them know that, you know, he's in a safe place, he's there. We had another veteran who, he's in rehab. People were looking for him. They called me. I called the VA and stuff. And so that's why networking is so important is, you know, I was like, hey, this is Karen, the VSO and stuff. And so to be able to have that title, you kind of, it opens some doors for you. And so I was like, I'm looking for so-and-so. And so she was like, oh, I don't know. Let me give it, you know, let me give you a call back or something. So then he calls me and he's like, I just want to let you know that I'm here because I helped him previously get into the home-based program, but he slipped up but at least now he knows it and he's getting treatment again. So it's just, you know, there's people who need help out there and I'm happy to know that, you know, people do call me because they trust that I'm going to do something, and that I am able to help navigate, you know, the people to be where they need to be. So also just a couple other things or whatnot. I applied for and got three Korean Ambassador for Peace medals for Korean War vets. The Purple Heart community, so Newbury and West Newbury just became, Newbury's already established. West Newbury just got established this year. Went to that ceremony, it was really nice. Bob James did a great job. I went to Essex and the Essex Board of Selectmen has approved to be a Purple Heart community. So we still need to do like a ceremony and stuff. I did go ahead and I purchased the Purple Heart community signs for each of the towns. But the process is that we have to get a proclamation and the Board of Selectmen need to sign off on that proclamation. So that is something that I would like every town to be part of that. Military, Order of the Purple Heart and so that's something that I'd like to work on, and I would like to have a ceremony. So.
Can I just say something along those lines?
Sure.
In Newbury, there is no list of Purple Heart recipients in common. There's a lot of broken pieces around the country where people have, written to them, said, yes, I am a Purple Heart recipient, so on and so forth. But I know that when we became a Purple Heart community, unless the Purple Heart recipient comes forward and volunteers that they have one, you can't find it anyplace. And that's when I get back, when I was talking about, veterans being humble, even during our ceremony, our Purple Heart ceremony that we had back in March. I know that, Don Jarvis is one. We have another gentleman, I apologize, but I'm not sure what his name is in our town, but there was no way to kind of pull all these people together and worship them, I want to say. So I don't know if anyone else here has ever tried to do that, or.
I try to go like Distinguished Service Cross. I'm not looking for, and they're not all listed. All Medal of Honor, their society, they're very careful about that, and they make sure they're listed. But Distinguished Service Cross, Silver Star, there are websites you can go to,
Right.
But they're just not listed, and they're down. I agree with you. They should be listed so we know who these people are. Every time it's Purple Heart, somebody puts it on their license plate, or a Bronze Star or something like that.
Yeah.
Unfortunate that the government has not done a great job. We were trying to find veterans in the cemeteries. We couldn't find them. I'm sorry,
Yeah. So in regards, so it would be self-identifying, but you could look up people's DD 214s, but you would have to go into each individual. So there is a database, but it's not 100% complete. And so you could look in that database to see if you could get somebody's DD 214. But also, you would want to make.
But you can't do, there's no such thing as
Like nobody else-
there's no reverse lookup like
Yeah.
there is like on the white pages for a phone
Right.
number.
No,
It's like you have to know the person before you can pull their DD 214. So that doesn't work real well.
and not every Purple Heart recipient, and there's no right way or wrong way and no judgment either way. Some would like to be recognized and
Exactly.
and some I know some who have a Purple Heart and they'd rather not be recognized because they don't consider it, they're like, it's not a medal, it's not, but anyways, but yeah. So I think that just having the signs up there and kind of along the same lines as what Rich said and what we're doing with the GWAT sign is that when you're driving by and you see that, you know that the community supports you, you know that what you did was real and what you did was important, and that is something that really can resonate with people. I am doing some outreach events and seminars. So I did one in Newbury. I have scheduled West Newbury and Georgetown that I'll be doing benefit seminars at. I'm also participating in the Georgetown Health Fair. So I'll have a table set up there and trying to see if I can get people enrolled in the VA.
I wish they would, because now the
Yeah.
Halo Clinic is starting to get specialty services there.
Yeah.
Like the foot doctor will be up there on Thursday.
Yep, and so, and we're also, looks like we're getting 2 new people on chapter 115. Karen has been killing it, with
Like the dental cleaning.
yeah, and everything, because I mean, when people are on chapter 115, if it comes down to like dental or eyeglasses and stuff like that, like you have to really jump through hoops. You really have to communicate well with the, with the dentist's office so the amount of time parents spend calling the office, advocating for these veterans and surviving spouses. I mean, I hear her all day, and it's just, I can't appreciate her enough, because I think that the veterans and the surviving spouses, I mean, there's been people who've been in tears because they haven't been able to chew, or, they need dentures, and so to be able to get that dental work done. And so I just want to say that Karen's really been killing it, so.
Thank you.
Yeah. And she also did a great job on the newsletter and keeping up with, tracking everyone, make sure that, communication gets out there. Our Facebook page, we need to beef up. Our Facebook page is actually really good. What we need is for people to like the page.
Like our Facebook page.
Yes, we need to get followers and stuff, but we've really been, doing great information on the Facebook. I've been posting a lot of National Guard stuff, a lot of articles, sharing a lot of what the VA is going on, what the VA is doing. So that's something that we have to kind of figure out how to get more people to follow it. And then in closing, just want to let you guys know that we do have our Dbs training. It's going to be in Leominster, where it always is. It's a conference, a couple of days. The state pays for it. Both Karen and I will be at it, and Cindy is going to cover the office while we're gone.
That's nice. Thank you, Cindy.
That must be the date that.
That's the date that I sent you. Yes. Don't scare me. I was like, oh, wait, let me look at the. Yes,
Yeah.
that's the date that you scheduled.
Yes. 3 days.
Yeah.
All right. It's coming back to me now.
Okay.
Also,
Yeah, does anybody have any questions?
What's the name of the Facebook page? I just tried to look it up and I didn't get anything.
Oh.
Eastern Essex,
Easton, okay,
Essex District
okay.
Department of Veteran Services.
okay. Karen, thank you. That was a good report. And Karen, I'm going to say you worked really hard. Committee with one of the veterans. Resources. Believe me, she worked really hard. So, moving on to agenda number 7, discuss tax exemption. With that, I'm gonna throw that out on the table. And Dana, did you?
Yes.
Okay, go right ahead.
I've been working on this, and a couple things you mentioned, and that is, 10% disabled versus 100% disabled. Right now, there's nothing in the middle. I've had a number of veterans contact me and say, that needs to be changed, and that is something that has to be done probably at the federal level, or is it the state level?
It's purely state.
Where I believe it's very important that we break we have to have more percentages of 10 or 100. Because there's a lot of people that are at the 50% bracket or 75% bracket, but they don't get an opportunity to they get the 10% is what they get. The other thing I've talked to Lenny Mira and Bruce Tarr, and the exemption itself, the town provides that to the recipient through property taxes. Newbury right now is at the state mandated level, which is not good. I mean, there's so many towns in Massachusetts that have bumped that up. It's amazing. And I want to see Newbury personally to double the state mandated amount. That's gonna have to go through, like, probably an annual town meeting. We're gonna have to, vote on that. I'm gonna advocate for that very strongly in the town of Newbury. And that brings back the portion that the state, and this is how we as a group can sell this to the public, being where the money's gonna come from, is the portion of that money that gets reimbursed to the town from the state is ridiculously low, which is another thing that I'm working on with Lenny and Bruce about getting the state to pass legislation to increase the amount that the state is gonna reimburse the towns for, so that it's not a total tax burden on the people.
So is that the 75% you're talking about that we?
No.
Oh, okay, this is something different.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's completely, this is just that.
If you have 10% disability, it's $400 that's taken off your property tax bill. And right now, that's capped at the 10% level
By the state.
by the state. And but by the town, that has to go before a town meeting to be changed. But I would suggest, it's my suggestion, that we form a letter, put it together and send it to Lenny, and send it to Lenny Mira, and also to Bruce Tar, and to ask for that exemption to be up and reflect the disability of the veteran. Some veterans are out there 50% disability and 75% disability. I don't know if you're going to pay the whole tax bill, but I think the state could step up and increase that.
Yeah, I don't know how, because I've been on this for a number of years trying to work with Lenny and Bruce. And even into the Secretary of Veteran Affairs here in the state, and really hasn't gotten any traction yet. The thing is that it's the same amount of exemption from whether you're 10% or 90%. And I had been advocating, like Dana has, for more of a tiered structure. The higher you go up,
Yeah.
the more money.
I think it needs to go to the state, and
Yeah.
the state needs to address this in the legislature, not the Senate.
Lenny has told me that they're ready to move forward, but I'm not a professional or a lawyer or anything by any means, and I would love that assistance where we as a group maybe can get some professional help in drafting something that we can move up to through Lenny and Bruce to try and I at least want an answer. I want somebody to say, no, Dana, that's a dumb idea, because no one's gonna say that as far as I'm concerned. I just can't imagine that. I mean, even my town administrator has told me that, yeah, this is kind of embarrassing. We need to up the ante on this. But it's just like you said, there's a lot of hoops and,
There is, and there's-
but I think it's totally doable. I think it's totally doable.
And some of the really disabled vets we don't see.
Right, well, it's like, what you were saying about, some people don't want to disclose. I mean, to get this, you need to disclose financial information and a lot of other paperwork it has to be put in process for someone to get the exemption. And if they're embarrassed to do it, and I understand that too. It's like, we don't want to step on anybody's toes. We don't want to expose anybody to anything that they don't want to be exposed to. I mean, that's part of my job, is not doing that also. And I have to, I have to work this a bunch of different ways.
I think the very first thing we need to do is to form a letter, some sort of letter, and send it into to the legislature, and to Lenny and to Bruce. So the Senate, they both receive a letter from us, from the district, how everybody else will.
Does,
Oh, one thing I would suggest before doing that is talking to an assessor to have them, really break down what what it means, like how much, how many people you have on, but also to break down the law, because, I'm not an assessor and I don't interpret, IRS information, but my understanding is that anything, so it's like section 59, it's Mass General Law. And so you have this list of exemptions, if you're elderly, if you're blind, if you're, have a service-connected disability, those types of things. And that if you do the increase, it's for all of them, so not just the veterans. They would all go up.
Of course, yeah, I totally, agree. I feel like Gold Star families, I mean, a Gold Star family, I believe, is at 100%.
Right.
And that the recipient it probably is not the veteran. It's the veteran's spouse, or it's the veteran's child, or, so I totally agree with that. And that, that might be the problem. I don't know, but you're right. We can't just pick and choose which of those categories we want to increase. We want to increase all of them that are on that list.
So I think the very first thing is to form a letter and send it in. To tell them the concern.
And then we can work on the veterans organizations in our respective town.
Yeah.
To get, them to support, something like that.
Do you have a VSO organization statewide?
Yes.
Do they have a lobbyist?
So,
Good idea.
yeah, so we do have a legislative committee, and we do submit, bills each year. Or at least come up with, you know what I mean? And so I do have, during that training, we are gonna have a business meeting with the MVSOA. And I can bring it up to the other VSOs, to see if it's something that they can put on the, send it over to the legislative committee.
Karen, could you do that and then report back to us at the next meeting? Okay, that sounds good.
Yeah. 15 years ago, $400 was a huge impact.
Yep.
On tax rate. And now 15 years later, that's eroded.
It hasn't changed. I mean, it hasn't changed in like 20 years or something. And again, and it gets right back to letting all the veterans know that we care about them.
Yeah.
It's just like the bridge. It's just like everything else, I mean, it shows that the cities and towns where they live care about them. That's why it's important.
Yeah, I think, $400, 15 years ago, I think needs to move a little bit, especially from some of the disabled vets. So. Anyways, so Karen, can you look at that and then bring it back to the board and we meet next time? I think probably be the summer. We'll talk about that in a second. Anything else on tax exemption?
I was unable to attend the POW MIA ceremony at the sheriff's office this year. Did we have any representation there?
No, I usually go every year, but I had a situation in the office that I had to take care of. So
Well, I was
it's
told that
usually really good. They do a good job there.
Well, a lot of people still don't know that memorial was there. So there is a memorial.
Yeah. And I know the whole background and stuff. Do you know?
All right, we also have tax exemption. Okay. Let's move on to number 8. I just want to go overview of the meeting law. I know we have new members and especially emails. Please don't converse on an email back and forth because that can be construed as a violation of open meeting law.
In a group, to the group, 2 people can have a conversation via email and not violate the law.
Okay, but in other words, don't group.
Don't group respond.
You can't, no reply.
Okay, that's just, and I know you guys, when you was selectmen, select board, I would suggest, when I first got on board, there was another citizen collaborative training.
And they made us take that, our town made me take the training, they had to go through all that training and give my certificate.
Yeah. Yeah, but there's also, you can go to the Merrimack Valley Planning Commission, which you're part of, and they have citizen collaborative, very good. I took a number of them way back, I was kind of 15 years ago. And, open meeting law, how to write this, a decision, how to conduct a meeting. There's a number of, and it's, especially as a new member of the board, it's excellent to take part in, because you learn some things, you know, oh, I didn't know that, ooh, I didn't know that, or that. So besides every year doing the, what's the one we have?
Conflict of interest.
Conflict of interest, you know, and, you know, which takes us, depending on how many mistakes you make. Half hour to, some of them think are common sense, but all of them not feel. So anyways, I would just ask you to vote in equal, okay? Next meeting. I'm thinking that probably it would do some discussion between two members about making, before we leave, what date we're going to meet on, so that we don't leave the meeting and not know what we're gonna meet next. Did you bring that up to me? I think that's, somebody brought it up to me.
I did.
Okay.
I think that, I've always thought that we should have a day, a specific day in the month that we're gonna meet.
Yeah, it's
Whether
so
it's
hard
every
because
month,
we got,
I know,
we got-
but then you can put it on your calendar.
so how about everybody look at their calendars right now, no, you might not have them. How about December 7th or 14th? It's Wednesday.
November, what is that?
7th.
December.
December 7th.
I think earlier in December is better,
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think it's better, especially
even though that's a notorious day.
Yeah, December 7th, I have a meeting.
you have a meeting
I
that,
have a meeting on that one.
okay, how about the 14th?
Well, it's my birthday, but I'll come.
Okay.
I just do that up in the alley.
All right, the 14th, how's that?
6:30?
6:30 on the 14th. Okay, and that way we can put this in right now. There will be,
While I'm thinking about it, Karen, are there any, plans throughout the district for Veterans Day parade this year?
So I have to find out about parades, but we are doing some breakfasts in some of the towns. So, the parades are usually, well, I know that, the Raleigh Veterans Association, so they organize their parades, and the VFW American Legion, they organize it for those big parades. And usually, they let me know when it's gonna be.
we have a Veterans Council in Raleigh, and Bob Breaker, you know Bob, don't you?
I think I do, I just, I don't picture a face.
We call him Boats because he was the chief of
Oh.
boats, so anytime you see Bob, we call him Boats. But you know, nobody crosses boats. Okay, but he's been doing a lot in Raleigh, he really has, I can't say enough about Bob. He's a really a stand-up guy, he's a Coast Guard guy, again, chief of the boat, and those guys are a little bit different than anybody else. So, yeah, he's working on, I think he's working on Memorial Day, and he's also working on Veterans Day. I don't know, we have breakfast, either we're gonna have a breakfast or dinner, usually we have a dinner at the Council on Aging. So, I don't know what's held, but that's still in the works.
And Ipswich is gonna, have a breakfast the Saturday before. Former Rep. Brad Hill always does it, and so him and Senator Tar will do that, and that will be for both Ipswich and crown like last year.
So there will be, because there'll be Veterans Day is Friday, the 11th of November. And Georgetown will have a ceremony at Harry Murch Veterans Park.
Oh, good.
But there's no march or parade or anything.
No, what we had last year in Raleigh, we had a little get together at the school, at the middle school. And that was a nice thing, that, there was a lot of global war on terror vets. And it was really good to see.
Yeah.
There was one gentleman, the Army came in his kilt. I don't know.
Yeah.
He was a ranger.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he came and I got to see, he said, he talked to him. I think how many deployments he told me. I think he was 5 or 6 deployments. What can you say, you know?
Who was that?
I forget his name, it was last year, Veterans Day, but he had a brown beret, and I'm not sure, but he was a ranger. And, yeah, it was 5 or 6 deployments he had done.
Yeah.
Just amazing, you know. What can you say? Good to me, he's a hero, so. To him, he's probably, humble, no. Anyways, so, anything else? Okay, you can think of anything else that maybe to go on the agenda, to verify and send an email. And we'll for the 14th of December, and that's the next time we'll meet. So with that, we'll have a motion, which one?
So move.
I have a motion, do I have a second? I have a second, all those in favor? Thank you, everyone.